we're live, and we are in portrait mode because my computer decided to go and update, and it's updating my OBS, which is my open broadcasting system source. I can't remember. And it's been going on for about 10 minutes. It's about 16% through, so there's no way we're going to make it. So, we are going to have you post comments for questions. It's going to take me a second because I've got to pull up the other end of this now and actually find my own live so I can see what the comments are, because right now I'm on my phone, which makes things, needs to say, fun. There we are. And there we are. So, hey, look, I'm here. There's one of me here, and I'm here on both sides. Dismiss, close. Well, that is not cooperating too. Well, there's somebody else than me. I see another person there. Don't we just love technology and the way it likes to cooperate? Ah, there we go. So there. Now I've got some delay on it, so yeah, go ahead and post your comments or questions. We can start answering those here in a second after we get started. I need to pull up another lead here so I can get into the questions that have already been posted. So the biggest thing that we had here on the farm was the massive amount of rain we had last night. Not sure if anybody else got it, but we got 1.25 inches. There were 2 rounds of storms that came through. The first one was a lot less. The second one actually, it got us pretty good. It came down quick. It was a heavy line. I didn't pick up any wind damage, but I did pick up a lot of rain. Little bit of erosion, nothing major like we sometimes get. It looks like usually like the beds of carrots and things like that get washed out when we get these super heavy soakers because it like tops over the beds and there's really nothing we can do with it. I honestly think some of that I've solved by not incorporating as much compost into those beds out in the field as I used to, because when I did more compost out there, it made the top so fluffy when we got these heavy rainfalls, it just and it was gone. Okay, so let's see if I can get into where the questions are at since I've got me up on this. Usually do it the opposite way around where I use this as my way to look at questions, and I use my computer to actually broadcast with. Okay. See if we can find it. We just have to find the questions. There's YouTube Studio. There we are. Okay, we are about to get started. Only 5 minutes in, so we're doing pretty good time. Did put together a pretty cool storage cabinet, which was on the video today. Well, cool for me. I don't think it's, revolutionary, farm stuff, but it's great to keep all the stuff over there instead of next to me over here where all the food stuff is. I mean, you can't have tools and batteries and things like that, where you really shouldn't have things that you don't have there. What's the topic for today? I don't specifically have any topics on these generally. I usually just start going through um, questions that have been posted and start getting to those. So we'll go back to where we left off last time, which would have been, I'm looking at the computer screen in front of me. Okay. Let's see. Watch your video on the drying rack. We have 2 washing machine spinners. This would be great. How do you recommend setting up your wash pack area? Um, the way I see it, if you actually have 2 spinners and 2 tables, you kind of want to work in a fashion where you have 2 different areas. The best way I've ever found is to do a U. So your sinks are on one side, your spinners are over here, your drying racks here, and your pack tables here. So every time you're working in a circle. You're never really leaving that area. Um, if you really kind of want to make them work together, you put your 2 wash sinks together and you make like a W, and this would be the opening. So your sinks are here, and then at these areas of my hands is where your drying tables, and these would be your pack tables. So you bring product into the middle, and then it'd go out and back around. The idea is to have your walk-in right across from it as well. So everything that goes out or goes out of your walk-in goes in a circle and goes right back in. So you're not wasting steps, not running around circles. Definitely don't want to do anything linear. Anytime you work linear, you just run back and forth constantly, and it's not worth the amount of time. I actually learned that here. That's the way the building was originally set up, and I don't do all that much work in the pack building. And the couple days I did when I started working up here again, I was like, why? Why are we doing this? Why am I going to run down here and then go another 30 feet this way and then go back and forth like a typewriter all day? That's pointless when you can just work in a little circle. Everything's within arm's reach. You don't have to move around. Same thing with the trash bins up here. I found out they're both over in one corner. It's like, why? Why are they both in one corner? I need a trash bin over here on this side and over here on this side. So if I'm over here, I don't have to walk clear over here just to throw something away. So the little things that really, really add up a lot when you're trying to put together an efficient pack area. I had some questions about the backpack sprayer on the battery life. So far, I've not run it down. I've only ran it through 2 tanks, and I have not charged it. Um, it's going to be what it is. I mean, I think for a normal market garden restaurant working on more than like an acre, acre and a half of intensely planted produce, you're probably never going to run that thing dry. That's the Vevor backpack wand sprayer. It's electronic. It's got a weird old battery in it. The whole thing's in general is a good idea. I do think that down the road when that little lithium ion battery runs out, because supposedly they're really expensive, you can just take one of my tool batteries, and they have little spade plugs on the leads, and same thing with tool batteries. You just plug the positive, plug the negative. I know I'm going to be pushing 18 volts through there, but typically pushing 18 volts in a 12-volt tool is not going to do anything but make it go faster and a little bit higher. And it's got the adjustable pressure regulator on it, so that's actually adjusting the amperage going into the motor anyways. It's a little multi-step resistor. I can't remember, something like that's what they're called. But you can turn it down or up, and you're just adjusting the amount of voltage going through that's actually hitting the motor that's making it turn. So if you turn it down, you shouldn't have a problem even if you're overpowering it. There are a lot of people use those old Power Wheel, the cars for the little kids. Those are all 12 volts, same battery, little tiny ones they burn out like every year. Just use drill batteries and take the spade plug off and plug onto those, and they work great. Now I will note that the old ones work best because they have the spade up on them. Like the Ryobi ones are great because they're lithium ion batteries and they have that same one. The DeWalt's now and the other brands, they have the snap-on things, so they don't have anything to plug on, but you can buy adapters that plug onto those to put them in the older tools. They also have great adapters for any batteries to fit on anything. So Okay, are you using drain tile in any of the areas on your farm for drainage? No, I'm not using any drain tile out here. The reason is because we are on a slope about like that. Well, no, about like that. So it's not super steep. It's probably less than 5%. But everything runs downhill and runs away. We do not have any areas in our production area that actually hold water, and that's why I don't have any drain tile. Down towards the bottom where it slopes, it kind of comes up a little bit because that's the old plow line on the field. So there's a dip here where the dirt got pushed over where the fence line is. So I do have a little bit of an issue, but I just cut a ditch through there, you know, about like that, and it takes the water through and gets it back away from there. That's the one advantage of having a small tractor is that I can build little ditches and berms and things like that. The idea is to have the water run around everything. That's also why I have so many grass paths and walkways around here. Not only to keep clean while you're moving around, it also looks really good when you live out here and you have to look at it. It's not just a big giant empty field of nothing. And it allows me to put in berms and ditches to get the water to run around. We're not trying to store water here. We're trying to get rid of it. Like last night, we got that inch and a quarter of rain, and I can guarantee you probably an inch of that fell in probably 30 minutes. And I think I was towards like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So we get the really, really intense thunderstorms here, and the wind too. The wind was great fun. I don't know if anybody saw this, but I put it out on Facebook. I was in the high tunnel, the big giant Zimmerman high tunnel, and I was weeding the onion beds about 3 weeks ago, and we had about 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. It was getting to the point where it was really, really had calmed down, but it just all of a sudden blown, and it was doing that, and it stopped, and then it blow, and stop, and blow, and all of a sudden it went poof, and just popped like a gunshot, and the whole entire lid of the high tunnel tore off and was flapping the other way in the breeze. Thankfully, I was in there. I went through and cut it off the other side because the plastic was going over into a building in the other plot and irrigation, and it probably would have torn some stuff up flapping around like that. But I was able to get it cut off there, and then had to go through the effort of immediately running over here into the pack building, ordering new plastic, and I got it from Bootstrap Farmer because they're a small company and they also have the better 7 layer. I don't know if it's actually better or what. But the great thing is, I called them the next day and basically begged them and said, "Hey, can you get that on a truck today to get it out to me?" They got it on a truck that day, and it was here within 2 of the time I ordered it. So that is just awesome. Shout out to Bootstrap Farmer on that. I couldn't believe it. I got it so quick that I was able to put it up the next day, which was a Saturday, which was the first time that I had winds calm enough to be able to do it. Wasn't able to get the side curtains fixed on it, but I was able to get the lid back on it, which was just amazing. I mean, I can't say enough about having plastic come that quickly. Everywhere else was 2 to 3 days processing time. That was their typical time too, but I think calling them helped out a little bit. And again, as Bootstrap Farmer, and I will give them all the praise in the world for that. I've talked to them in the past. They're techs over there, and they're really good people, and they're really, really nice to work with, and they have really quality products. I'll just say that just hands down. They didn't give me a discount. They didn't give me anything free or anything like that, but I was super pleased about that. I'm working on a video on that. I did get the automatic side opener back up and running. And then 2 days later, which was a couple of days ago, I got the other side, the manual crank side, up and running. So now I just need to put the video together. I think that'll be out next week. It was quite a process because it had blown constantly for 2 weeks. And, we got the full south side blows in on us. And then it blew for another 2 weeks. So one day it finally switched over to the north. I was able to get the south side done. And then it blew from quite a while from the north, and it stopped and went over the other side and was calm enough at uh, sunset that I was able to do the north side with the manual roll up. There's a whole scene. I was going to do this in fall because I knew the plastic was getting old, but I thought I could make it another season because I could have swore that stuff was only 3 years old, and I had the season to do it. So I was going to wait for it to calm down before I did it. But that's just the way it goes. Had a question there. What are my, I think it was, what are my bed links? Let's see if I can look at this. And I'm going to shake you all just a little bit. Okay, what bed width and length do you prefer? Flat out, I don't know if that's going to go away or not. I used a 30-inch wide bed, but those are spaced on 4-foot-ish centers. So from middle of walk path to middle of walk path is 4 foot. Makes it super easy to lay everything out. That's the whole market gardening technique. 4 foot, 4 foot, you make your bed in between. If it's higher up, your top's not going to be a full 30 inches. It might be down closer to like a 26 or 24 if you really start, because you got a little bit of slope on the sides. But that 18-inch walk path is what is best. But if your walk path shrinks a little bit, your tops get wider. So it's a trade-off one way or the other. It all depends how you want to work on it. The little Kubota tractor I have, old granddad's tractor, it sits to where the width in between the tires is exactly 30 inches. And at least in my context, I find it in no way, shape, or form helpful to raise my beds more than about an inch or two at most. If I go higher than that, they wash out. It's pointless. They dry up quicker. I've got a really heavy, silty, loamy clay thing that they have out here. It's got like a CC of like 17 raw, and I kick it up to around like a 22, which makes that like an excellent gas tank, but it also holds moisture and transfers moisture. So the higher I go up, the more evaporation I get. So that's more of a, the width is more of a question. I actually knock my pathways down just a little bit so I can use 4 foot landscape fabric and have those little bits, and then have the fabric overlap a little. Because if you do not overlap the fabric a little, you will have weeds grow up through it. If you have that much, the grass pressure is so bad out here, it'll fill up the whole entire path and go into the bed halfway. It'll literally take over the plot with a gap 1 inch on both sides of the bed. For links, I laid out the whole entire farm originally on a 40-foot long bed. I did that because everything comes in links of 100 foot. So if I cut it in half, I got 50. That gives me 5 foot on each side. So when I put stuff up on supports and hoops, I'm covering my whole entire plots with my row cover, low tunnels, hoops, whatever I'm using. 100-foot sheet of plastic. Um, I can go 90 foot with a Caterpillar tunnel, and then I have 10 foot to cover one side, and then I might have to buy another piece for the other side. So that's where the original plan came from. When I put two beds end to end in the big plot, I actually accounted for like a 2 foot walk space in between them. So you have a 40-foot bed, a 2 foot walk space, another 40-foot bed, and then I have 4 foot of fabric on top, 4 foot of fabric on the bottom. So from fabric end to fabric end, I have 90 full feet in there. And again, the thought was, hey, that'd be great. I could have a walk path in between if I'm separating them two beds. If I want to have one full continuous bed and I take the fabrics off both ends, I have a 90-foot area. So if I buy a 100-foot piece of anything, it'll fit over it and I'll have enough on the ends to tie it down on the ends. So that's really where the thought was. I know now they're selling row cover and fabrics and things in like 110-foot links and 120-foot links to account for this, because everybody likes to do 50 and 100. Easy numbers to do, that's why you do them. The coolest thing about having a 40-foot long bed that is 30 inches wide on top, which is 2.5 feet, is that it is 100 square foot on that bed. So that's 100 square foot of space, not counting the walk paths or anything. So if you're amending only the bed top, you have 100 square foot pieces you're working with, which makes the math far easier than dealing with 125 square foot like you end up with on a 50 foot long bed. So that's just one thing to think about. I don't think there's a right or wrong way, because honestly, if you have a 50-foot long bed and you only get 40 foot of fabric, then you just leave 5 foot unplanted on both ends. During the winter, you're only going to get winter weeds anyway, so it's not a huge problem. So that's kind of the way I always initially thought. And actually, on the land out here, it worked out best too to have the 90 foot with a 16-foot walk path in between, and then come over and do 12 and 90 foot, and then there's 16 and 12 and 12 to fit across my land just by the width of it. Tips for, oh, it disappeared. think I lost myself. There we are. Uh, green onions. I disappeared. Come back. Okay, fry the tips of green onions on your lights. Would you recommend trimming the tops? Thank you. Uh, Jesse Frost, the no-till gardener, did a video here just, I think it was pretty recently, on onion transplants that I saw. He actually dug into the research and found nothing anywhere that said you should trim tops and you gain yield, or you trim roots to gain yield. As far as I know, the reason you trim your tops and your roots for a normal purpose, for like an onion or the bunching onions or even leeks, would be specifically so they fit in a mechanical planter, so you're not having them come out the top or the bottom when they're going through the planter. I'd say it depends on how fried they are, but onions naturally will shed leaves anyways. They'll shed the tops, they pinch back off. I do know I did have problems 1 year when I trimmed onions when they're a little bit bigger, and it left, because onion tubes are hollow, it left the leaves open and water went down there. And when I harvested the onions, I had black spots in the middle because those very first leaves acted like conduits for water that drained down into them, and it caused the onion to rot out from the inside. And that's why I believe it's from. Ever since then, I've never bothered. You should see my bunching onions right now. They look terrible. They should have gone in the ground 2 weeks ago, but we keep getting these late frosts and freezes, and I really don't want to put them out there and have to deal with row cover. And it's been so windy, I'm going to plant them in the culture plastics this year, that the stuff is billowing like that far, and I'm going to put the plant in there, and it's just going to either eat it or pull it out. So I would say don't touch them except to plant them. That's the best way. Get them out in some natural light. At least in my area, I'm out in the tunnel. We're going to get a hard freeze. They're calling for 29, which our last frost date is in 2 days. That last frost date, this is the average, so it's not the actual. It's not only a frost, but a hard freeze on the same date. So, for one thing, peaches have already bloomed here, so nobody's getting peaches in our area this year. Um, I got a lot of stuff in the field already, so I'm going to have to cover it. Strawberries have been blooming already, so all of those are probably going to be lost on the first harvest or two. So that's like a quarter of their yield right there. All the kingberries gone. So ah, that's a whole nother story. That's what the damn the deer eat them and everything else. How much wind does your wind block fence block? A considerable amount. The wind fence is awesome, but the way you got to look at it is whatever height you have, you get 4 times that of block, and it comes down like this afterwards. So if I have a really good, 4 foot tall fence here, I get about 16 foot, and then I have nothing. And even at 12 foot away from the fence, it is starting to minimalize quite a bit. So it's good, but it's better than nothing. I mean, I purchased some willows earlier this year, some little sticks for probably way too much. But I was thinking actually, and I might be crazy for doing this, putting them in the first bed on the south of all my field blocks, and then doing them in the center, and then growing them maybe 2 or 3 feet, and then just copicing them like once a year. Maybe take out every other. I don't know. Somehow create some kind of wind block. But during this time of year, they'd barely be bloomed, so they wouldn't be doing me any good anyways. So I don't know which way I'm going to go with that. I wanted to harvest them for the sticks for cut flowers. Cut flowers are actually kind of working this year. I've got some more varieties growing. The biggest thing I found is the Rudbeckias are stupidly hard to grow. Zinnia is great. If you get the double click Cosmos, those are great. They look really awesome too. What else do we do good? The Celosias, the feathers and the coxcombs do great. So, had a question about to the video last year on using surround to actually coat like landscape fabric and tunnels and things to kind of block the light and cool the fabric. Saying it's clogging up their cheap little box store sprayer. That's what I used, and it never did. The only thing I can think of is you're mixing it too concentrated. You might want to thin it down a little bit. And I also I shake the thing as I'm walking around. I'm holding the handle and I'm spraying and I'm shaking. So I'm not getting big clumps of it. So I'm constantly keeping it agitated. So that might be another cheap or another trick to that. A better sprayer would not help you anymore. The trick is keeping the solution suspended, adding a little bit of soap. Somewhere I read that, like a drop of Dawn or so, will actually help keep the suspension going because it helps work keep the molecules separated. Okay, here's a good one. What are the orientations of your tunnels and greenhouses? I'm in Kansas. I'm in zone 6B. I have a primary wind out of the north and south. My strong storms come from the west. So primarily I orient my greenhouses to the east west with the broadside facing north south. With the greenhouse, you have the slope over the top. You want the wind to blow over it and not into the end walls as much because that's when it blows out end walls and picks up tunnels. That's the main way tunnels get destroyed is they have a wind blowing directly into the end wall. It blows the end wall up and then it picks it up out of the soil. Not a really big problem here either because I have about 2.5 to 2 foot of topsoil before you hit the solid clay layer, and almost all my greenhouses are driven into that solid clay layer. So you can't just take stuff out of the ground here. It just does not pull up. I either have to use a tractor or a wrench and spin it over and over again. Stuff just does not come out. I do know a lot of people with sandy soil have big problems with this. And what it primarily comes down to more than anything is your primary source of wind. If you're north south, I would say orient your tunnels east west. But we also get our strongest storms that blow in from the west. So it's half one way, half the other. The other thing that a lot of people they tell me all the time when I tell them the orientation of my tunnels, like, yeah, but you have a primary north south wind, and if you open up the tunnels, you get better ventilation. That is very true. If I open up the two end walls, it'll naturally ventilate with the wind. And then when the strong storms come, they come and they hit the greenhouse and they go over it instead of going to the end of it. I also have a tree line, from where I'm sitting, and the tunnels are about 30 feet in front of me. About 150 to 200 feet behind me, I have a tree line that is blocking my west wind when the storms come in, and we're downhill from there. So I've got a really, really good shelter from the west wind here. So I get hit, but not hit as hard. Um, I would say the south wind, when it's blowing, 30 miles per hour, 40-mile-per-hour gust, is stronger than when we get the one or two gusts that come in that are like the 60 and 70s. I think it gets dissipated by the tree lines quite a bit behind me. Another thing is the further north you go is when you want to start thinking about your north south orientation because the sun is lower in the summer or lower in the winter and higher in the summer. So when it's lower, you're getting, if you have crops all spaced this way, you're having more shaded areas behind them, to where if they're all this way, you're going in between the rows and everything's getting, more or less even amounts of sunlight. So you don't have to worry about shading as much. It's what I really run into when I go up further north and speak, that they're in a completely different mindset than me. And further down south, it really doesn't matter at all. The sun's up so high always, it doesn't matter. Okay, another one on the wind fence. Where do you buy your wind fence? I get it from the big box stores. I look for the green stuff. It's construction fence, but it's got the web in it, not the just the netting type. And they do sell green stuff, so look for the green stuff. I got it from the green big box store. I don't know if the other box stores sell it or not. Here's a great one here. I actually have somebody else that let me know that the way I did my potatoes intensively spacing, which was 2 rows, 6 inches on center, 6 inches apart in a bed, and planting almost 100 pounds of seed potatoes in a 90-foot bed, that there's other people that actually do that and they get the potatoes that I try to get. So this will be very awesome if I can get this to work. I still do have another bag I need to, well, I've got another, I think I've got enough for another 40-foot row. I'm debating on planting a 90-foot row kind of as a control and doing them as 6 inches all the way down it. I haven't figured that out yet. Probably be whatever time allows. Or they'll just sit there on the ground over there and just grow like they are, and then I just write them off as I'm never going to get them to the ground. So that's the way it goes. Every time I try to do more, something else has to give, is what usually happens. So that's where I'm actually focusing on this year. I've got a little plot just right outside my door. That's where I tried to do my asparagus and rhubarb and some, there are other flowers I did. What were they? They were little spider bulb things, and then the dahlia, the little tuber bulbs. It did horrible. It got taken over by grass, and I lost almost everything. I'm actually planting that out this year, and I've already got the landscape fabric on it. I put in new rhubarb plants. I put in some new asparagus to fill in the gaps. I transplanted some other asparagus that was in other spots I didn't like. I also got in horseradish, and now I just got my raspberry bushes. I got those through Willis? No, the other guy, Stark. Yeah, I ordered those through Stark. And I ordered them on Sunday, and they just arrived today. So I'm going to get those in the ground. Need to figure out how to plant those. I believe I plant them, and then whatever is left sticking up, I leave 2 inches and cut it. So I get new primocane growth and encourage the root growth, but I got to look it up, and then I got to get the rest of the fabric down. It's a great thing about YouTube and internet. Quite literally, there's and I'll stress a lot of good information out there, but there's also a lot and a whole lot of really, really horrible advice out there where people try to tell you to do things you shouldn't do. Market Garden Success Group, same thing. Ask a simple question, you'll get 100 answers, and 2 of them are right. The rest of them are home gardeners that think they know how to do stuff. And I'll admit, I don't know everything, but I also do not answer questions that I do not know that have worked for me. Same thing that I've had some manufacturers send me products I've been putting together and actually showcasing, or showing how I would use them here. They're not paying me, but I'm getting the product for free. But I'm not going to show something that's just stupid and silly just because they sent it to me. If they want me to make an advertising video, I'll make them an advertising video, but I'm going to charge them for an advertising video. So that's kind of where it is. Like the one I did today with the garage cabinet. Great cabinet, great product, perfect for what I wanted to do with it. I could make a whole video out of it because I wanted to put it together and kind of show you my thought process of, not only one, how I build stuff. I do it really quick. I try to work through the instructions and, visualize it in my head and then just go at it. I can do that. But then the other part of it is, how am I going to use this? If it's just, I don't know, like a box of, I have to use this example. I'm sure they probably won't like it, but they sent me a box of bungee cords. Like, what am I going to do with a box of bungee cords? They're old rubber bungee cords. What are there anything new or cool? I mean, they got really cool insignias on them. They are really neat looking, but they're just a rubber bungee cord at the end of the day. There's nothing of value that I can teach or promote to anybody using a bungee cord. If I can find out a really cool hack with them, if anybody knows one, let me know. Sure, I'll show them. But at this point, they're just sitting in a box, and I'll probably give them away to people I know, and maybe they'll enjoy purchasing. I've also been talking to another company here recently, Tinker Tube, something like that. They sell, it's almost like metal scaffolding pieces. They're tubes and there's connectors and stuff to where you can put them together any way possible. I'm really hoping they'll send me some of these products as well, because I want to build my spray table and spray sink. I've got the sink sitting on top of the walk-in right behind me. I've had the plastic, three-way corner pieces to make it out of PVC, inch and a half PVC, for going on a year. I just need a way to have a tray set on both sides, a sink in the middle, and mount a sink to it that I can then hook to either garden hose or permanently hook into water lines or something. But with the PVC stuff, I keep going around circles on how much more I have to add and if it'll work, and then it's wobbly. But I think this might be a really cool thing that I can use. So if I can get it and I can use it and it's actually really cool, I'm all for it. But I'm getting a little off topic here. Greatest comment I've ever gotten here. So wasn't a question, it was telling me something. I did the SOP on sunflower microgreens. I have never soaked my seeds and I have never had any problems. Okay, everybody soaks their sunflower seeds for at least 6 hours before they plant them. The seed batches coming through, I haven't purchased this year, but last year, all had a mold on the holes. So when you soaked them, you started to rot them. What happens? The mold on them took over, rotted the holes as they came up, caused bad germination and bad growth. If you don't ever soak them, they're on the surface, which makes perfectly good sense to me, then they're never going to mold because they're going to come out of their shell, they're going to germinate before they have a chance to mold. So this is one thing I'm excited about trying. Now I just have to have the free time to try this. I don't even have the microgreen room. Well, I have the microgreen room, microgreen room up and running. I do not have any microgreens growing right now because I do not have time. I finally just got some staff here to help me on the farm. Got a new gal on the field, and I've got another new gal in the pack house. So I'm super excited about that. That should free me up from the normal processes of the farm, and I can start to focus on bettering the farm again. So that's what I'm really, really excited about. Um, Intensive Karabi. So what is your fertilizer input? Mainly your nitrogen. I do 100 pounds per acre equivalent of nitrogen. I can't tell you how much that is off the top of my head because you have to do the math. I use an 855, so I've got 8% of whatever I'm putting down is nitrogen. You take that and do the conversion to pounds per acre. So that takes a little math. I believe I've explained it before. I also have a spreadsheet on arkenbergfarms.com, digital tools and training down at the bottom, where you can do the conversions for this so you know how many pounds to put on your bed. I think I even broke it up to bed length. I don't know. Somebody will have to remind me if I need to update it, make it a little better. That was a free version I had out there, and it was what I use for this. The great thing is if you get a drop spreader and you calibrate it, like I did in another video where I calibrated the drop spreader to spread a known amount, and I ended up at 100 pounds per acre equivalent, then I know if I run that thing down once, I drop 100 pounds per acre. No matter how far I go, I can go 5 feet, I can go 10 feet, I can go 100 feet, I can go 450 feet down the field. As long as I keep that thing dropping, I get 100 pounds per acre of nitrogen equivalent for that crop. Make 2 passes, I get 200. If I had a way I could dial it back and get like 50, which I don't ever use because I keep it simple. 2 applications. I either do 1 pass or 2 pass, 100 pounds or 200 pounds. So that's a lot of things that really help you to streamline your farm, is to try to standardize things as much as possible and keep things simple. You don't put down 76 pounds of nitrogen on your, let's say, radishes, and then 84 pounds of nitrogen for your cabbages, and then 137 pounds of nitrogen for your broccoli. You do one or the other, and if you really have this in betweeny ground, you can do a third, but you have to have equipment that'll do this, this, or this. I have equipment that does this or this, so I do this or this. Makes it way simpler, way easier. And again, that comes down to if you use a organic amendment and you have a very nice CEC in your soil, even lower ones, that stuff will sit there. Unless you have super, super sandy soil, your nitrogen is just going to sit there because it's an organic component. It's being broken down, but it's not being, I don't know, it's not as water soluble, so it's not just going to soak through the soil. I've talked to so many traditional farmers who are like, oh yeah, the corn just did horrible this year. We put down the anhydrous and then it rained, like for 3 weeks, and we got like 10 inches of rain and all the nitrogen washed out of the soil. It's like, why even put it in there if it just washed out? I mean, I'm building my soil up in nutrients. Best way to think about it is think of your soil kind of like a gas tank. Higher CEC soils have bigger gas tanks. Like mine's like that, where if you have a sandy loam soil, it's only about that. But the idea is you have a gas tank this big. Don't keep it this full. Keep it this full at all times. Now, there is a possibility of putting too much in. I still haven't found that level. I've never seen anything do bad because I had too much nitrogen in the soil. The great thing is if your gas tank's full, and you know that, oh, I applied way too much, I'm getting too much growth like greens in my tomatoes or something, don't fertilize for the next crop. Put in a quick feeder. A quick, easy feeder like a radishes or arugula or a green or something like that, just to see. And if it starts lacking a little bit, great. You might not have to do twice, but you want to keep your tank topped off. Same thing with the car. You you blow out fuel pumps because the fuel pumps inside the tank is cooled by the gas. If it doesn't stay cool because your tank's full, it gets too hot, it burns out. Same thing with your soil. Doesn't have enough in it, you burn your soil out. If you keep your soil up here at all times, then you have the primo conditions that anything growing there can get as much as it could possibly need to grow. So it's never struggling in the whole process. Okay. How long do your greens basically last? Spun versus unspun when you're washing them. So we bubble everything and we throw it in the spinner and spin it off and then throw it on the drying rack. I can't tell you too much other than spinning does knock out more of the moisture. I actually tried to drop off doing the drying rack process because I thought that took more time. It does, and there is no difference in shelf life whatsoever in a cool environment. You keep it in a walk-in, you keep it, in a grocery store, in a shelf, in a cabinet, or in a display case, no differences. If you do not dry out your leafy greens at least a good amount, when you take them out to a 90-degree day, all that moisture in the bag then heats up, especially if the sun gets on it, and it steams your greens inside of it. So they're gone, they're ruined, they won't even make it home. So that is the biggest reason why you have to somewhat dry your greens. Is that if you don't, if you're going out to a farmer's market and they get hot, it will steam the greens in the bag. I mean, you made a nice enclosed environment with a clear on it like a greenhouse, so if it sees the sun, it goes poof, and then your greens wilt, they're dead, they're done. So that is the main thing. And I found this out the hard way by trying to eliminate a process, which in all actuality, if you're doing it right and you're running your bubble tank, your spinner, your drying rack, and packing, all at the same time, so you're continuously moving stuff around, does not add anything to the time of processing greens. Now, if you do it linearly and you wash it, and then you spin it, and then you dry it, and then you pack it, and then you start over and you wash it, and you spin, and you dry, and you pack, then yes, you're going to be, you're wasting time, but you're also doing the process as it should be. But if you put everything in a U, like I was talking about earlier, you can have all those going at the same time, and everything's moving all at the same time. You don't have to worry about it. You more or less, when you're doing it this way, when you're doing it continuously and you have everything running at the same times, you'll actually have to stop and turn off the drying rack fan because it'll start to wilt your greens because they're actually getting blown around too much. Okay, looks like we are almost done here. Question with Caterpillar end walls. In my environment, they all have to be wood. No other shape, form, zipper, anything works. It all gets destroyed, and it gets destroyed, and it gets destroyed. So the only thing I can tell you with Caterpillar end walls is you build them out of wood, wiggle wire, channel lock, whole 9 yards, doors, everything. Take your plastic off on the in the winters, or not the winters, in the summers, goes back up on in the winters. So that's really where it comes down to. But you have to build them out of wood because they just don't last. Untreated wood, of course, or paint it. Been trying to find a good way to like use a couple extra hoops and make that be the end wall, and then I can just take the whole section off. But I have not basically had time to really work on that. I believe I have all the supplies to do it. That's another thing I got to do on the farm. We'll tell everybody Mother Earth News Fair is coming to Lawrence, Kansas next weekend. I'll be speaking there Saturday. Let's see, Saturday afternoon, I believe I'm doing the season extension presentation. So I'll be talking about high tunnels, things that work in the high tunnels, and basically for your fall planting and how to kind of plan out for that, how all that works. Also some greenhouse and tunnel designs and other ways of doing it. In the evening, I'll be doing a hands-on. Because I'm close to Lawrence, I'm literally 15 minutes from the presentation over there. I'm going to bring a bunch of junk from my farm, and the hands-on is going to be I'm going to walk around, talk about, let you touch it, look at it, feel it. I'm going to try to bring as many things as I can, and then we should be hopefully building some wire weeders. I got to bring some wire. They're going to be supplying broomsticks, and we're just going to use duct tape because that's all you really need to build one. And you can use hose clamps or whatever later to make it even better or more improved. So that's what the real plan is there. And then Sunday, I am doing DIY market gardening, the one I do all across the nation, and it goes from the way I kind of organize my farm, and we go from seed to harvest and pack and everything of all of the stuff I've built on the farm specifically for the market gardening technique. So I try to stay very focused towards more of a commercial market gardener. I usually draw a decent sized crowd with that one, and I get the really good questions on that one because that's the one that the people that are there are the people that are actually trying to do what market gardeners do. That's what really, really brings the people in for that one. The other ones is you get gardeners, and there was really not that, I won't say like not as good of questions, but the questions are more home garden oriented instead of, hey, I'm growing 200 cabbages. They're growing like three in a little row of, you know, there's a whole different world, a whole different context when you look at it that way. Um, Here's one that I've never really had an issue with or problem with. The sun hemp video, show you the little root nodules, the little nitrogen fixing nodules on them. How do you know that they're not root knot nematode? It's because we don't have root knot nematode here, and the state actually tracks where it's at. So if it's here, they're going to tell me because they would know, because you'd see serious problems. The only one of the few instances I've actually heard from the county extension office of somebody actually developing root knot nematode was when they had tomatoes in the same plot for 30 years straight, continuously. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. Worked great until they just stopped growing at all. They came out and did a soil sample, sent it over to the biolab because, tomatoes here grow great in almost all soils. And they discovered it like, well, you basically can't have a garden here for the next probably 30 to 50 years until they pretty much just peter out on themselves. There's really nothing you can do at this point. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to leave it there. Go start dinner. Enjoy the evening. Like I said, next week I should have the video up and out about the reskin in the greenhouse, putting the plastic on, rehooking up the sidewalls, rehooking up the automated sidewall where it's not much on it, just basically hook the sidewall. Again, arkenbergfarms.com, scroll down the bottom, digital tools and training. Got a bunch of cool spreadsheets, and I've got the greenhouse opener kits for sale where you get the controls and the motor, also the actuators, the linear actuator. Same thing, you get the actuator and the motor. So basically everything to automate a system that you most likely already have. I will encourage everybody to have those. I do them specifically because it's not something I have to think about on the farm. After they work, they pretty much work, and then I don't have to worry about, oh, I left the greenhouse open and all of a sudden I'm across town and the sun came out and now it's going to kill everything in there. That's the biggest horror story there is, and it's a stupid reason. You hear that? Go to the video. Build one for yourself. They're super easy. They're relatively cheap in the scheme of things. I mean, you got a $2,000 greenhouse. You can't spend the extra couple $100 to automate a vent so you don't kill everything in the greenhouse. I mean, to me, that's where it's at. But I'm going to leave you all with that. Hope you all like Saturday. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Farmer Keith. Thank you all. Have a good day, and I'll see you all in Lawrence next weekend, or get the video 6 o'clock a.m. Thursday. Every week you'll find me. If I'm late, it's Friday. So thank y'all. Have a good day.